So your store historically doesn't have a ton of game table space on the ground floor. I think that's almost any anymore, does it?
None anymore.
That's right. You've taken up all the space with paints.
Yeah.
Just paints on paints. Yeah. Paints and Warhammers everywhere. But you've got your whole like big game room. How many, like 6-7 game tables in the basement?
Oh, we can fit about 10, I think, max.
10 6x4s? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So you are obviously, and we talked about this when we talked about Spearhead, you love games that play in a small footprint. So I have you here today. And hi, everybody. Welcome to another Inside Tabletop. This is Chris from Woods of War Games and Hobbies.
What's up, guys?
My name's Ash. We both work in the tabletop game industry, and we have a podcast that's about commenting on current events. So if you're here, you probably, if the first time, you might not know who we are. Chris runs Lords of War Games and Hobbies in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. I'm Ash Barker. I run a production studio in Niagara, Canada. And we're here to talk about Kill Team 2024, the new edition of kitchen table size 40K. And it really is turning into kind of kitchen table size 40K. And if you were around yesterday, you probably watched some of my GMG reviews of both the joint operations and 2-player starter set for Hivestorm, it's a new starter set. But it led to me wanting to talk about this with you because you're a retailer and what this means. Because we had a really great talk about Spearhead and the opportunity that relates to a certain type of gaming store to have Warhammer in it, like that footprint being important, and how it seems to be important to some gamers too. But one of the things that was a takeaway from my review of Hivestorm was all of the Age of Sigmar 4 learning that clearly went into the product design for this by separating out the core rules, which are really the core rules. Like there's only 2 operations packs in here. The first one is the like Primus preliminary ops mission pack, which is just kill guys and score points killing guys. Like there's no objectives to hold. It's just a death match basically. And then the joint ops mission pack and the multiplayer ops mission pack, which is the solo and cooperative one, which is the sections I'm excited about. They're in the core rules. The rest of it is in the approved ops card pack. So kind of like 40K 10th and the new General's Handbook, having these new bolt-ons to the core rules seems to be where Kill Team's going to. So this is very much a Leviathan style book of like, how do you set up the terrain exactly for 3 different types of terrain mats? How do you put your objectives down exactly? And it's a very match play feeling.
For sure.
Also, there is no spec ops in these books. So there is no campaign stuff whatsoever. There's no earning experience. There's no getting battle honors. That's all.
Like I said, all the co-op and solo stuff is just like how to play it, not scenarios.
Not scenarios, not campaign. That would be whole. If that's coming, that's a whole.
So that's probably going to be like you said, like this whole bolt-on philosophy of like you buy the crossing fingers. Yeah. The philosophy of like you buy the things you want and attach it to the game.
Game. Yeah. This is the console for Kill Team, but they've included the Call of Duty Online part of it. the joint the core operation pack, the approved ops operation pack, which is clearly the competitive version of the game.
Right.
So with that knowledge now being publicly available yesterday, I wanted to have you on to talk about what would that mean for you. So you're gonna have this core box. It's available for you to order. And it's a smaller scale version of 40K. It's very much feeling like 40K with this card set, mission structure, all that stuff. So what's your interest level in this, and what's your sort of like beat from the street for retailers?
Yeah, that's great that you put it that way, because I feel like there are 2 very different things. Like I'll get out of like my own bias, and like my shop is a unique experience, and I always try to acknowledge that before kind of explaining, like we're a weird place.
We're not like other game stores. There's the game stores, and these game stores your mom warns you about.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the game store your mom warns you about.
Oh boy. So just honestly, like things like Kill Team, like I think for every shop that has like 40K stuff, these big boxes are always like really well received.
Yeah.
They always do tremendously well. And for the reasons why things like Scaventide are good, but also even more like powerful, I think, because they are fully complete experiences, like
this
nothing
hits that
else.
sweet spot, except for price, because it's not cheap. It's sub
not
300,
really cheap.
but it's not cheap.
It's under $300, which the price has crept up a bit, like everything. But like, it's hard to argue for what you're getting. Like, the table, the terrain, both sides,
Yeah.
the book, the cards, you get a tremendous amount of stuff, right? So the value proposition is always very strong. So people acknowledge that, and like people just like to buy big boxes of
Mhm.
stuff that looks awesome. So Hive Storm's going to sell really well. I just know that right away.
Yeah.
And Kill Team, just how is, I guess we can call this third edition almost. Like we could just say it's third edition kind of.
This
I
would
know
be
they
the
don't
third
really
edition of
call
the
it third
game.
edition, but it's,
If you count Shadow War Armageddon as edition
It's-
0, because it's
yeah,
so different.
I think you got to call it 0 because it's
right?
yeah.
It's
yeah.
so different than, and like the proto versions of it that were like a
White
Anecdote
Dwarfs
and
and
White Dwarfs
Combat,
and stuff like that. So like this is really the third intentional edition of the game.
So coming into third, Kill Team is in a really strong place, I think, in a lot of hobby shops. In our hobby,
So finish your
yeah,
thought,
I'll
and then
finish
talk
my
about the
yeah.
other
So
ones,
in my hobby shop, it's a unique product because it fulfills two roles. One, it gives new people a really easy launching point. So
Nice on ramp.
I didn't see a lot of Kill Team first edition people playing Kill Team. I saw some people buying some Kill Team stuff. Second edition is when I really started to see there being Kill Team players start to develop. And it really
Because it was a
built.
separate game.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 40K with less
exactly.
rounds.
Yeah. And it really built up momentum throughout that edition of like, oh no, this person's getting into Kill Team with their friends.
Right.
And they've convinced their friends to all buy a Kill Team box because I'm asking them to spend $70
Once.
one time to try something. And I'm going back to my childhood and thinking like I'm trying to convince my friends to like go broke or whatever to try to do this hobby or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a different ask, right? So it has that phenomenal like on-ramping thing. And then I think the other strong thing it has, well, I mean, there's two more things. The second thing would be for those that are collecting 40K models and like really love the 40K universe, it catches a lot of people, I think, like falling out of that hobby.
It looks really pretty. It looks like what I imagine Warhammer looks like, right?
Like you said this before, like you get the really zoomed in experience. Like your core guys look better. They have more dynamic poses. They have like a name almost. Like they matter more.
Their gear that their pouches are on isn't just like a utility belt that doesn't mean anything in the game.
And people in my demographic, the people that are aging a little bit and have less time and stuff, are leaning more into that as they get older. Like maybe they can't do the full 40K army now, so I'm gonna collect Kill Teams because it gives me a really nice experience to paint 10 models. So I see that a lot.
I can catch them all too. Like you could paint a whole season's Kill Teams and have that be. I did the last 2 editions. I painted every Kill Team that came.
So it's got the on-ramping people that are getting into it for the first time. They tend to be younger people. It's catching some of the people falling out of 40K. And then it has a purely, I want to paint that appeal because the miniatures are so well done.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a really strong basis for a brand and a product because it's supported by so many different types of people. So that's what I see in my store. And obviously we're a little bit more hobby oriented and more painting oriented in our shop. So we get a lot more of the like, oh, I'm going to paint this up because it's freaking awesome kind of people. Yeah. So obviously that's maybe not every shop. So that's my store. What I'm seeing happen a lot more, broadly speaking, in our area and in other shops,
with like your peers,
the types of stores I'm seeing run a lot of events and activities and really doing well with Kill Team are actually card shops, because I think it fits. And I don't know if Games Workshop's thought about this, but it's kind of brilliant if they have. Card shops have card tables, and they tend to be smaller. They don't really fit gaming tables very well. And all of these new Games Workshop games that are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, you don't need to change how your store is. You just plop it on the card table, and it fits the same amount of people you can play cards with. So if you have space for 40 card players, you have space for 40 Kill Team players.
I think this has to be intentional because Spearhead was so intentionally made that way, and this is coming off the back of that, and it's clearly borrowing a bunch of like design structure. And when I say design structure, what I mean is that you can see the outside industry stuff coming in of like the way you project plan a video game design thing and you have it bolt together modularly. That's definitely in this book. And it's the one thing I will say about this book too, they threw out so much word salad that was in the previous edition. The second edition of Kill Team used 50 words to say a really simple concept. there was clearly a moment where someone came in from outside, the two writers that wrote this book, and took a red pen and were like, you don't need to say this way. You don't need to say this.
Can we just
way.
make cover simpler, please?
Can we just make cover simpler?
Like,
can we
holy
just measure
moly.
in inches? Like,
oh my gosh.
You do not like,
Yeah.
you're putting in mechanics that are special for the sake of being special. They don't need to be in here. Just get rid of like 90% of the words that are in this paragraph. And they did. And this is such a more fun book to read than the previous rule book for Kill Team, simply because they did away with the legalese. It doesn't read like a contract. It reads like a game book. It reads like a conversation with someone teaching you the game, which is such a better way of internalizing information, especially for new players. So there was some meetings definitely between this edition and the last edition on what needed to change. And the first thing that needed to change was the game doesn't need to be written by people that want to sound smart. You can just talk normally and have the rules read normally.
That's great, and that's obviously only going to have a good impact, I think. And I should say too, like the people that play Kill Team, like I get a lot of feedback from them that actually play it and give it a chance and try. Like we run a lot of leagues in the store. Like we like the league format better than single day tournaments because it, no
people
matter
can schedule their own games.
People can schedule it. It's so much more flexible for people and their busy schedules, right? So we do a lot more of that. People like how tight the rules are. Things are clear and simple, and I think you can play a pretty fun game in a pretty short period of time.
That's it.
I think, and ultimately that's the experience a lot of people
more completions of the loop
are leaning towards. Exactly. Yeah. So you can paint your toy soldiers up a lot faster, and when you actually get your games in, you could get more games in or get a game in. And for a shop like ours, it's great too because we're two dads running a store, so we're open till 7 most days.
Yeah.
Which isn't ideal for getting games in, but you can come after work and people get a game of Kill Team in still before we close.
Yep.
You couldn't do that with 40K or AOS or any of these big kind of tabletop games, right? So
100%. And I think if that's what's happening with you, these card stores are it's way more integratable into what they're already doing, and that's nothing but opportunity for players and for that business owner.
Yeah.
Right. It's less to stock, less.
Well,
to do.
I'm glad you said that because, like, think about that from a capital standpoint. If you're a business that doesn't know much about doing models, and you're being like, Games Workshop's cold calling you, or like, you're starting a relationship with them, and you're like, well, I don't. You're asking me to to carry these things and stuff like that. It's a bit of a smaller ask to say, okay, I'll get the bestseller stuff, whatever, the little buy-in, but I can get this little bay that I know is going to turn over pretty quickly, and I know it's stuff that we can support and run in the shop and actually have a good grasp of. I think it's a little easier of an ask.
Send me a paint rack, spearhead, and Kill Team.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
That's right.
And I'll do a special order day once a month if people want to grow past that. But like those things feel like such a solid buy-in for like 100%. A card shop or a comic shop that wants to start carrying Warhammer. I love that there's I wanted Combat Patrol to be this, but I'm fine with this being this too. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't integrate like Combat Patrol would or like Spearhead Story does into Age of Sigmar. But I also just think this is better as like an introduction to the universe and to like the mechanics of the game. It's a like you said, you're getting your broke friends into something. It's a way lower ask for 100%. A full game. Like one box is a whole game.
We've talked about this a lot on your channel. I think like at a time when like the shelf seems to be getting higher on a lot of things, these products are so important.
Yeah,
they're so important to keep the flame alive for these hobbies, right? Like to get young blood in and get that future generation still turning over, right? Like,
well, you got to see the movie play out.
Yeah,
right. For someone who's young, completing 10 miniatures and then getting to sit down at a card table, and with someone who's maybe more experienced than them, get to have the whole movie happen. And stuff can't die instantly, really, in this game. So like you feel like your guys matter and they do interesting things. It's sometimes completing the loop, having it be easy is great, but having it be rewarding is hard.
Yes.
And this is a more rewarding feeling game-wise than just removing 10 Space Marines before you even get to move your guys.
With one volley of shots or something.
Because you went second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I painted these 10 miniatures and they just got taken off before I got to do anything.
Yeah.
Whereas in Kill Team, you painted 10 guys, you're going to sit down. Those 10 guys are going to be there for 4 turns. There's going to be some guys left in the game almost no matter what you do.
Well, we were chatting about this. Like, what would be like if you were gonna put a demo table in your shop, like what would you make a demo table of today? This makes way more sense.
Yeah.
To do like a small little Kill Team demo because like you said, like you can have that, like you only have to put a few models on the table and you can give a meaningful feeling to somebody versus
especially with these card assets now, like you can have all the visual information in front of you.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to play the game with just stuff in
100%.
front of you. Like
Yeah.
it's designed to be shown off.
Mhm.
It's designed to be player friendly and player accessible, which I think is great. So then I guess what's the challenge then of like having seen this laid out in front of you? What are the challenges you think that this happening? Because it's not actually happening. Like we're both wish listing right now. Like we're daydreaming.
Yeah.
And I would love for this to be like the thing that breaks through into a more old school cinematic version of Warhammer 40K, becoming de rigueur. But they are launching it like it's Warhammer 40K, which is fine because I actually think this is a good thing. I think people who come to a tabletop game like this from video games, like Call of Duty, this is much more Call of Duty with miniatures than it is Fallout 4 or
100%.
or Elden Ring. You know what I mean? Like, and I think those things can still exist for other players, but I do think this is the better lead in, even if it's not necessarily for me, because it will be familiar to people to do like a deathmatch.
It's never been easier for two strangers to play a game. Like, well, that's the thing, right? And that's the thing that ultimately they're building the game for as the first experience is like, what if two strangers play?
Yeah.
Well, you'll have this like,
has to be fair.
We've laid out the whole social contract for you. There's no talking or anything,
like
right?
not even the terrain. Like literally, there's like maps to show you where to put everything.
Yeah.
Right. 6 different ways to lay your terrain out. Like you don't have to do any handshake agreements. This card deck will show you all of the contractual obligations, even down to like the step-by-step of how to set up the battle.
Yeah.
So this is a lot like the Leviathan deck where it's like, we can hate each other and still play a game.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. That's how honest.
I mean, I don't want it to be that way. But that is the requirement is that you and I could never speak a kind word to each other, but still sit down and play a game of fair and balanced Warhammer.
It's it's like you said, it's the video game, the gamification, or like it's making it more like a TCG.
Yep.
Where it's like, I've played Magic. Like
official
at an event, like your opponent might not talk to you for an hour.
Sure.
But the game still happens. Like it is what it is, right? That's the way the games are being built now. And like you said, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like it makes it clean. It's simpler. And ultimately that's going to be most people's first experience now is playing that way. I'm more excited for the growth potential of the brand and the product from the other stuff that's kind of being less talked about, like the solo and the co-op stuff. Because to me, that's where I start to draw connections into what's Magic the Gathering done in the last 10 years that's really expanded their company. Well, they came out with a multiplayer format, right? What's so fascinating about Dungeons and Dragons, right? Playing with your friends against something. Like I think there's a powerful thing like slumbering there that, and you did a whole video about this, that Games Workshop has just not tapped into it at all.
God. And that they can market. Like imagine they did a play set for every Warhammer TV series. Imagine you and I could buy the Astartes
and play through
play
it.
set and play through it with our 5 Space Marines and like board a ship in Galadark and then fight through a bunch of Traitor Guardsmen and then end with some confrontation.
Do you know how many products are made that are made not by Dungeons and Dragons but for like it is insane how many minis, boss battle kits, game aids, like it's a whole massive industry that's bigger than Dungeons and Dragons that's sold to people that like do that hobby. And to me that is the real potential there that they have to create all these products and experiences for those people, and those people want that. Like there's people that really want that,
and there's people that are going to be making it no matter what they do. Right.
True.
Like
exactly.
Because that's the thing that immediately went off in my head. And that's the thing I'm going to make. I'm going to write and record tons of little adventures with my miniature collection using the joint operation,
which is awesome. Yeah, like that.
Right.
100%.
And I'll gain inspiration from a million different places, and I'll have a great time doing it. And I'll give it for free to my patrons, and that's going to be my initial engagement with this. And while I'm not going to speak with Games Workshop's, future plans in my head, if they don't do that, it's just money left on the table.
100%.
Because that is a thing like being excited for the next movie to come out in a series that you could engage with, that this is now set up to do. right? Because they pulled the core rules out and gave it its own sort of like polish.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, it's so not new in the indie sphere. It's so not new in the D&D sphere. They're so late to this party, but they have a property that's like built for it.
Even Asmodee, like the Marvel game, like they make not enough of them, mind you.
Yeah.
They should make more of these.
The
Epic Encounters.
Yeah.
And they're so fun. Like you got to fight Dormammu or like Thanos with your buddies,
or a Red Skull in a
smoked.
tank,
You're just
like
getting
a Hydra
smoked.
tank
Yeah,
with
he's
Red
just
Skull
shooting cannons.
Like,
This is
amazing.
great. It's so good. And so like a lot of these big companies just scratching the surface of what you could do there. But yeah, obviously there's proof out there already in the retail sphere of how people, we get this in the board game world actually a lot.
Yeah,
is you got a couple like couples actually I think is one of the biggest growth markets I think Games Workshop could see with
couples board games.
With the cooperative thing though, is your partner is probably much more likely to try something with you if you were going to play a game like okay, we're gonna battle against the game together, than she is if you're like, hey, pick up them Eldar, I'm gonna shoot you. You know,
but I mean, that is we said this or I said this in my solo and co-op Inside Tabletop, and I think that's the absolute truth. Is a cooperative experience gets you more opponents, because when it's you trying to problem solve with someone, it's against the game. It's way more engaging and fun than it is when it's head to head for someone who feels like they don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
Right? When you're ignorant of what the capacity and stakes are, you feel like the other person always has the advantage. Whereas if you're ignorant and they're trying to help you to also win so you can win together, you are more likely to want to repeat that experience because you felt like you were cooperating.
Yep.
Right. I think it's great in friendship groups. I think it's great in partnerships. I think it's great in any time of like one person has more knowledge and prior experience to get to do something. It's like rock climbing. When you rock climb with somebody together, one of those people is helping you rock climb when it's your first time doing it. It's just happening. Like you're getting up that mountain and you're getting up that mountain or that wall together.
Right.
There's no way you're doing it by yourself.
They're not
especially if you're tied together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If you guys are both tied
Yeah.
together, we're both going up and we're both going down together. This is happening. and that's a real opportunity for a business to create things for a market and also to see that market grow, because inherently it's easier to grow something that's not combative and not adversarial than it is when it's cooperative. So I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, even in the board game sphere, you get like the Euro games, which are inherently competitive but not adversarial. So you're competing over resources potentially, and you're racing to a certain amount of points, but you're not fighting each other or battling, or in a kind of a head-to-head way. And even that disassociation creates space for people that want to learn.
It's not Monopoly.
It's not exactly right. So,
or as it was really called, the Landlord's Game, and it was designed to show you how bad that is. Did you know that that's the truth of Monopoly?
It's 100%
Monopoly
the
is
truth.
actually designed to be not fun.
Oh yeah.
It's designed to teach you about the evils of and it's called the Landlord's Game of landlordship, basically.
Yeah.
Crazy how that got turned into a product. Oh man!
Well, there's only 3 board games made.
That's okay. There's only gonna be like
that's the problem, right?
In 20 years, there'll be 3
There's
corporations that own every house that we rent from them, so it won't matter.
Wow, this is changing topic.
It always ends.
Yes,
it always ends this way.
Oh man, yeah. So I mean, like that's ultimately, I think the business side of me thinks, wow, there's so much opportunity here.
Sure.
To explore. I hope they're brave enough to go for it.
Make something new.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately it. I think you make something different and new, and we don't get that from Workshop a lot. The thing I was most excited about Kill Team 2021 was that it was something new.
Yeah.
We got a game that we'd not gotten before, right? They don't make new games. They make new rule systems. The newest rule system they'd made was the new Warhammer Quest dice system with the scaling dice. I think that was the newest actual game they'd made that isn't an iteration on a previous game that used brand new game mechanics and stuff like that. And that was Silver Tower. I think the first time that came through. Oh no, Silver Tower used a different dice system, although it did have the dice activation system. I guess Silver Tower's kind of the beginning of that. Before that, it was Lord of the Rings. That was the newest game system they made. Think about that. They don't make new game systems very often. And so to see them breaking out and doing that, I guess Underworlds was before that.
Sure.
So we go Lord of the Rings, Silver Tower, Underworlds. I'm going to be forgetting something, but there's a lot of daylight and space and years between some of those games, right? Where they're iterating on a previous thing, not making something brand new.
Yeah.
So Kill Team being something brand new and now evolving into this, is a really interesting way to go, and I think does present a lot of opportunity to them design wise, which means, like you said, it's an opportunity for you to sell things.
Yeah.
So as a retailer, like that's exciting. If
Sure.
people like that's why Shadespire was exciting. It's something new. People didn't have it.
And it's building, like going back to my point about the demographic, I think it's building to different like people as well, I think, and being aware that like you're such a big, they're so big now.
Yeah.
That
they have sub audiences inside.
They have
their
sub
audiences.
audiences. That's a huge thing, I think, and realizing that it's okay that every customer that gets into this isn't going to collect a whole 40K RP. That's all right, but maybe we can get them on some other product that's more focused towards.
You can make something for them.
For them, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I do think there's a gap between consumes books and media, Warhammer 40K fan, and plays Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's a lot of space in between
fill in
those
a lot
two
of things
people.
there.
You
sure.
can make a game in the middle there that's for those people. And people argue like Necromunda is that. It's not. Necromunda is its own thing in its own universe, and it's not Warhammer 40,000. It doesn't have Space Marines in it. It doesn't have that like high fantasy element that Warhammer 40,000 has. It's a grungy, dark, post-apocalyptic version of Warhammer 40K.
Exactly. One of the strengths D&D has is that everyone who plays D&D doesn't have to be a consumer per se. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but like ultimately every D&D group has like the people that like support it and buy the things that they need to play, and then the hangers on that come out and play.
They bought some Chessex dice,
yeah,
and they got a mechanical pencil and a photocopier.
And
that's all they need.
And I think this has the opportunity to be something like that, right?
Sure.
Where you could build it, because I think that still matters.
Well, every group's going to have their motivator.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen with Kill Team is a lot like Spearhead. Yeah. There's going to be the guy that goes out and buys the box and gets everybody excited and says, it's like, it's going to be $100. $100 you can play it forever.
Yeah.
You go buy the cards, you go buy the thing. I've got the core rules. Maybe they'll release them online for free. Who knows? And we've got this stuff. That's all you need to play. Come around my house. I have the terrain painted.
Yep.
We'll do Sunday night like skirmish, and we'll have games of Spearhead one weekend. We'll do,
and that guy's happy. Even if the one guy or two people in that group out of 5 or 6 or whatever it is, like the D&D group I'll go back to again, is the only one like consuming products and buying things, that person's still in the hobby. They're still doing. They get to play with their friends, and that fulfills that for them, and they're more likely to stick around and keep purchasing products. I think that's something that's sometimes overlooked. Is like people's friends staying in the hobby or it being involved in some way is a thing that keeps people around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a thing that like, from like a longevity point of view, you want people to have more experiences like that. If you're a company, you want more people to have their Saturday night, people get together once a month event thing that they do where they could play a bunch of games tonight and have a good time, because it just keeps you in it. Right? It keeps you enjoying it, and it gives you the satisfaction of having that loop happen. So I think short story long, I think I'm excited for Kill Team because I see potential there. I think what happens is we need to check in on this then after a couple of releases have come out for this and see where we get to. So I really want to be able to circle back to this, because I always know that my excitement for what I would do with it is always going to have me then like line it up with what actually happens. And I think this will be a really interesting one to circle back to, not just in the store, but in the store, in my life, because my plan is that I'm literally going to do that.
Yeah.
Going forward in the studio,
what Games
we're going to
does.
have Saturday skirmishes. The patrons are going to get to see 3 games of something every Saturday every month, or sorry, every other Saturday every month. And we're going to alternate between different skirmish games. And then you guys will watch it free on YouTube eventually when it comes out. But like, I want to try to replicate that experience with these games and my friends and see what happens. And then see what happens for you in the retail space. And then we can come back and say like, how'd this go?
Yeah.
If I'm the litmus test for the basement gamer, right, and you're the litmus test for the in-store gamer,
right?
Where does this?
Because we're going to be ultimately on different paths regardless. Yeah. Because like Games Workshop's already set my path out.
Yep.
Their products are already locked in the cannon, ready to fire for the next year at least. So they're committed already. They have their vision, and then now you have your vision, and it might go along the same way, or it might completely divert. And that'll be really fascinating to see how that works.
To see what the offer is versus what my takeaway is, and what the creative individual can do with this, and then what happens and what's kind of accessible. Because you're going to be somewhere in between those card game shops and me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like where it's like, I don't really know anything about this, but this is super low end, so I can have it on my card tables and this is accessible to me. You're somewhere in the middle, and then I'm just out in the fucking dungeons.
Yeah, I'm just in the
Doing
hobby
my-
shop,
doing whatever
just
we're
trying
trying
not to get
do.
it lost in the maelstrom of things that are being thrown at me every week. or
I
whatever,
mean,
you know?
that's another thing to
That's the
talk
other
about
thing, right?
this
So,
month. What else came out? We've got
Jeez.
Skaven, we've got Blood Angels, we've got Kill Team, we've got Chaos Dwarves,
Old world
we've got,
stuff and
old world chaos stuff. Like
yeah, man, it's
that's
wild.
five
That's just from one
different-
company. You know, I carry other things too.
one
It's like
company,
crazy, you know?
five
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
this one, while it feels big, is like we'll see what that looks like 6 months
Yep.
from now.
Yeah,
I'm
for
excited.
sure.
All right, sweet. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to check out Chris, where can they find you?
On the
Pluggies.
YouTubes,
Yep.
Lords of War Games and Hobbies, the one and only. And then you can check out our Patreon too if you want to support us. Patreon.com/Lords of War Games and Hobbies.
You want to hear Inside talking about two guys sitting in a game store on in the morning on Tuesdays.
That's right.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the state
yeah.
of affairs.
The mad ramblings.
Getting
Yeah.
real over
Super
some
real.
coffee.
Yeah. And or ultimately just buy something from our store, which is I think the best way to support us because you get something and I get something. It's
Come
cool,
see them,
cool, yeah.
and you will find things there you cannot find anywhere
It's
else.
a weird store. Yeah.
You guys stock so much hobby stuff. It's insane. If you want more of this, you get this podcast 3 days early, typically on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Guerrilla Miniature Games. You can also email me in a link below if you want to come play a skirmish game. I have a Facebook group where I set up gaming for the months going forward. Kids are back in school now, so we've got that open again. Every other week, we're going to do Saturday skirmishes, as I alluded to, but you can get in the Facebook group, the GMG guest calendar, and book time to come in and play a game here in the studio. And yeah, if you like these videos, become a patron because this only keeps going because of that. I don't make videos. I don't chase that algorithm, bro. So let's if you want to keep hearing weirdly moderate takes on the tabletop industry,
Super aggressively reasonable.
moderate. Yeah. We clickbait the titles to try and
Yeah.
get you in here, and then we just talk like actual reasonable human
Oh, man,
beings.
it's so disappointing.
You're like, I have empathy for the consumer. I have empathy for the manufacturer. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Oh, no.
How could that be possible? Yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, always fun.
Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.